You've been there, right? Someone drops a massive spreadsheet on your desk and says, hey, find something interesting in here. It's one of the most common, but also one of the most frustrating requests in the data world. Well, according to author Max Shron, it's also completely backward. So today, we're going to unpack his book, Thinking with Data, to see if its core ideas can totally change the way you work.
All right, so here's our game plan. We'll start with the big problem this book is trying to solve. Then we'll get into its core philosophy, its big idea, really. After that, we'll dig into 3 super practical takeaways. And then at the end, we'll help you decide, hey, is this book actually for me?
Okay, so let's jump right in. We're going to start with a problem that I'm guessing a lot of us know all too well. It's what the book calls the data first trap. So really think about that moment. You get this giant data set, and the only direction you're given is that classic, super vague instruction, just, find something interesting. It's so frustrating, right? And it happens all the time. But as Shron points out, starting a project this way, it's pretty much a recipe for going nowhere fast. And this is Shron's first big, kind of counterintuitive point. He says that starting this way is starting from exactly the wrong end. He calls it the data-first approach, and it's a trap that almost guarantees you're going to end up asking small, narrow questions and finding, simple, unsurprising results. See, the goal isn't just about findings, it's about creating real knowledge.
Okay, so if jumping into the data first is a trap, what are you supposed to do instead? Well, that brings us right to the book's core philosophy, its central idea, the why before how.
This really lays out the 2 different ways of thinking, right? On one side, you've got the trap we just talked about. You get the data, you grab your favorite tools, and you just start digging around. But the book's approach, it completely flips that on its head. It says you start with a structured scope first. You put the why, the reason you're doing this, way before you even think about the how.
Now, to be clear, this isn't about avoiding the technical stuff. Not at all. It's about giving yourself the permission, the space, to actually think before you dive headfirst into the code. And that little shift? It's huge. It helps make sure you're solving the right problem, not just the most obvious one you happen to find first.
Okay, that sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do it? Well, the book gives us a really practical framework for building out that project scope. It's called Convo.
Yeah, Convo. It's just a simple acronym for a 4-part framework, and it's designed to give you that structure you need in the beginning. It stands for context, need, vision, and outcome. Let's break down what each of those really means.
First up, you've got CO for context. This is all about the people involved. Who are they? What are their long-term goals? You have to get this right because understanding the context, it sets the stage for absolutely everything else. Okay, once you've got the context down, then you can nail the N, the need. And the book is super clear on this point. The need is never, we need a dashboard or we need a report. Nope, those are just tools. The real need is the specific problem that you could solve if you just had better knowledge.
Next up is V for vision. And this is just what it sounds like, a little glimpse of what the solution could look like. It could be a super quick sketch, a simple mock-up, or even just a few sentences outlining the argument you think you're going to make. The point is to give everyone a concrete target to aim for.
And last but not least, O is for outcome. This part is so important because it forces you to think about what happens after you think you're done. How is this actually going to be used? How will we know if it was successful? Answering this up front helps make sure your work doesn't just sit on a shelf. It actually makes an impact.
That vision piece of the Convo framework, it's so critical that the book really zooms in on one specific tool to help you do it. And that brings us to our second big takeaway, the power of visualizing the end using mockups.
And get this, Shron does not mess around here. He straight up calls mockups the single most useful tool for creating focused, useful data work. I mean, that is a huge claim, right? But it's totally central to his entire way of thinking.
So what are we even talking about when we say mockup? It's really simple. It's just a low-effort, kind of idealized picture of your final result. We're talking a quick hand-drawn graph, maybe a couple of sentences that describe what a finding might sound like, or even a super rough sketch of a user interface. Nothing fancy.
So why are they so powerful? Because they take your goals from being vague ideas and make them concrete. Suddenly, you have something you can show people, something you can get feedback on, way before you get lost in the weeds writing code. It kicks your imagination into gear and lets you work backward from where you want to go to figure out what you actually need to do.
All right, all of this leads us perfectly into our third and final takeaway. And this one, I think, really reframes what it even means to be a data professional. It's the idea of building a case, of seeing your work not as just analysis, but as the process of building an argument.
The way Shron puts it is, your job isn't just to run a bunch of analyses. Your real job is to turn raw observations, all that stuff sitting in a database, into actual usable knowledge. So what's the bridge that gets you from one to the other? It's a well-structured argument. That's the vehicle, you know? It's what actually turns raw data into something insightful.
And the book gives us a simple structure for this argument. It has 3 parts. First, the claim. This is the one thing you want your audience to believe. It's your big point. Second, the evidence. This is your data, but it's been shaped into a chart, a model, something tangible. And finally, and this part is absolutely crucial, the justification. This is the so what. It's the logic that connects the dots and explains why your evidence actually proves your claim. When you think this way, you can build a really convincing case that helps people see things in a new way.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. The data-first trap, the Convo framework, mock-ups, building an argument. So let's put it all together. How do you know if Thinking with Data is a book you should actually pick up and read?
Well, let's see. This book is probably for you if you feel like you've hit a wall with just your technical skills. If you ever feel like your work isn't making the impact it should, this is for you. If you're craving a more structured way to think through problems instead of just diving in, this is for you. And it's definitely for you if you lead data projects and need a better way to scope them, or really, if you're anyone who wants to stop just presenting information and start creating real actionable insights.
You know, there's a quote in the book that just sums this whole idea up perfectly. Shron says, "Because of all of the work done in thinking about context and need, our work will be the right kind of simple." And that's the whole point, isn't it? It's not about making your work less complex. It's about doing the hard thinking up front so that what you produce at the end is simple, powerful, and above all else, actually useful.
So at the end of the day, the book really leaves you with a challenge. And it's the perfect question to end on. It asks, are you ready to stop being someone who just processes data and become someone who turns it into real knowledge? That's the journey Thinking with Data is all about. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.